Hey, folks. Wanted to come to you today and share some thoughts. I've had a lot of questions around why does the body or the mind, right, fall apart? If there's no known medical reason, right? What is the evolutionary tactic of an autoimmune disorder? Like, how does that even make evolutionary sense? And the best way that I can describe it is imagine, well, first off, let's think of the idea of going with the flow, right? We hear that a lot. Most often the axioms and idioms that we hear throughout our life, there's a lot of wisdom behind them, but they just become so overused that we kind of just block them out and we just dismiss them out of hand as if it was just our Aunt Sally just telling us something stupid that we've heard for the millionth time. But when they say go with the flow, well, what else flows, right? Well, water flows, right? So when you're going with the flow, this in many ways can be wu wei, which is in many ways, not acting, but more not forcing. So going with the flow means that you're not forcing, that you're doing not just what you're compelled to do, but what feels right. What is the right next action for you? That you're in the zone, right? Time just starts going by ridiculously fast because you're in that zone. And when you feel miserable, right, time just very slowly, incrementally goes by. So I want you to hold on to that for a minute and think about that. So going with the flow. Well, again, what else flows? Water flows, right? So going with the flow is a state of being. And if it's a state of being, well, that's a state of energy, right? Because everything in our world are made up of atoms, right? That Funko Pop right there, that book, this face, right? We're all made up of atoms. Atoms are 99.9999999% empty space. Empty space. That means if you take out the empty space of every single human on Earth, we'd all fit on in about the size of a sugar cube. And so we are just energy, right? If you think of the 2014 movie, Age of Extinction, right? Transformers movie with Mark Wahlberg. Right? There's a part where Mark Wahlberg pulls his missile out of the chest of Optimus Prime. And when he does that, Optimus Prime comes to life. And Mark's like, hey man, you're lucky that this didn't hit your energy source. Optimus Prime said, well, we call that a spark. This is what houses our memories and our life force. Well, Mark Wahlberg said, well, we call that a soul. So now I want you to imagine that your soul, which you don't see, right? Your great I am, if you will, right? That's the source of your power. And this is an avatar of that. And why would the avatar break down? Well, maybe the source is being drained. How could the source be drained? I'm glad you asked. So again, let's go back to flow. What happens when water quits flowing? Well, it starts to create stagnant pools. What's attracted to stagnant pools? Mosquitoes. Perfect place for them to go ahead and lay their eggs. What do mosquitoes do? Well, they drain our lifeblood. So in the energy world, if you've blocked that flow and you're creating stagnant pools of energy, well, same thing. You get mosquitoes of the energy world come in, and when they start laying their eggs, well, what do they draw? Not your lifeblood, but your life force. So when your life force is being drained, well, your body and your mind, which are extensions of your life force, well, they break down as a natural consequence. Right? The Tao Te Ching, probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, book around being in a flow state and going with the flow. Well, it talks about how if you give evil nothing to resist, it goes away on its own. Right. So think about this. Think you have these mosquitoes buzzing around your face. Well, what do people do? They start, swatting their hands and they're moving about. Well, when you're doing that, well, get your heart rate going. What happens when your heart rate's going? You're breathing more. Well, what are mosquitoes attracted to in the first place? You're carbon dioxide. So now you're actually making things worse by resisting and fighting them. See where I'm going with this? So instead of fighting and resisting, right, give evil nothing to resist, go away on its own. Not because it isn't there, but because you can step out of its way. So now think of this, that stagnant pool inviting the mosquitoes from the energy world, Well, once you get that energy flowing again, well, what happens? Well, now it goes through that stagnant pool, gets it flowing again, and it's no longer in an environment where mosquitoes can make their home. Therefore, you didn't fight them. You didn't give them anything to resist. You simply stepped out of the way and allowed the flow to take care of it. And when your life force is at full power, well, then your body and your mind, as a natural consequence, well, they heal because they are nothing but an extension of that. And if you're finding in life, whether it's business success, whether it's chronic pains, whether it is just brain fog, right? I want you to examine where does it feel like the flow is stopped. I guarantee somewhere in your body you're probably feeling it. Maybe you feel a lot of guilt and it's just in the pit of your stomach, right? Maybe you feel a lot of stress and you're feeling it in the shoulders or your back, right? Where is there flow that stopped? Our bodies are nothing but condensed energy. So it's the best place to examine where the flow has stopped. When you examine that body part, well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start having some thoughts and some emotions come up. Exploring those thoughts and emotions, well, in there is the key to open up that flow state again. And this is what I take my clients through. This is, what I give guided meditations that they can listen to for life in order to help them. Because, like it or not, the world's constantly trying to get our attention, and right, being that the news is all about be afraid, be afraid, be afraid, and tune in next time so you can also be afraid again. Well, what do you think that does? Does that sound like it stops flow? Yeah, well, it does. Because you now, when you're afraid, you're constricted. When you're afraid, your mind doesn't work very well. It's holding on to everything. And so examine those thoughts, examine those feelings. And I think that you'll find that the key to starting your flow state is going to be by going within. And this has been a lesson from Toward Goodness. My name is Joshua Cameron, and may love and truth always guide your path.